Hello to you all and welcome to IMPROVATE's and Spacecom's Communication Africa 2021 conference. IMPROVATE is a platform for creating long-lasting connections, enabling change-makers in technology and decision-makers in government. To make progress through innovation, IMPROVATE is all about finding solutions and sparking collaborations that improve the quality of life for people around the world. Spacecom is an international communication service provider and the owners of the Amos satellite fleet. Spacecom's most recent satellite, the Amos 17, is the most advanced satellite available now for Africa. Today, we'll be discussing the opportunities for development in African nations and dive into new technologies and satellite-based communication solutions, aiming to enable governments to extend their service reach, drive growth, and advance the African nations in all aspects of life. Joining us today from the United Kingdom is our keynote speaker, Tony Blair. He served as United Kingdom Prime Minister from 1997 until 2007, and today is the founder and chair of the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Also with us today here in the studio in Tel Aviv is Mrs. Irina Nevzlin, IMPROVATE founder and chair, and our partner in this conference, Mr. Dan Zaitchik, Spacecom CEO, former Israeli Minister of Communication, Mr. Yoaz Hendel, and Jabdi Massima, Tanzanian ambassador to Israel. We will be joined today with several African officials from 9 different countries: Mali, South Sudan, Gabon, Libreville, Ghana, the Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and Sierra Leone. Here with us in our first panel is Mr. Hamadoun Touré, Minister of Communication of Mali, Minister of Communication of Niger, Mr. Michael Makwe-Leth, Minister of Information, Communication, Technology, and Postal Services in the Republic of South Sudan, and Ms. Mamadi Gobe Kamara, Deputy Minister of Information and Communication from Freetown, Sierra Leone. Also in this broadcast is Aviv Ronai, VP of Marketing and Product at Novelsat, Ari Snai, Head of International Finance from Bank Leumi, and Mr. Yariv Cohen, CEO of Ignite Power. As always, watching along with us are representatives of investment funds from around the world who are looking to invest in Israeli innovation. Today, more than ever, always-on, high-quality communications are a fundamental requirement for any modern society and economy. Satellite communication enables a wide range of government services like border supervision, post services, and ID issuing through vital services like education, health, employment, and security. When it comes to the deployment of communication infrastructure that connects all areas, urban and rural, to the economic and social centers of the country, satellite stands out as the most reliable enabling infrastructure, and today also as a very cost-effective one. Spacecom is an international communication service provider that specializes in satellite communication and the proprietary owner and operator of the known Amos satellite fleet. Its recent addition, the Amos 17, is an advanced, fully digital and high-throughput satellite designed specifically for Africa's unique and growing needs. Operating since 1992, the company has built a strong standing as an innovator in its field and serves as a service to partner its customers, providing satellite connectivity services, managed services, professional services, and turnkey solution. Let's take a look.
Like breathing, connectivity is a basic human need. That's exactly why the UN has declared internet connection a basic human right. Especially in times like these, connection is what makes us grow. It gives us meaning and lets us be a part of something bigger than ourselves, part of a nation. Spacecom is proud to be a part of the effort to empower African nations to connect, and very proud to present Digital Community Platform, or DCP, a practical and sustainable solution to your country's digital transformation plans, including remote and less accessible regions. Combining connectivity, Wi-Fi, local cloud, content, and OTT in a simple and innovative way. Using Spacecom's brand new and advanced satellite, Amos 17, specifically designed for Africa's needs, DCP provides a turnkey solution, which enables a complete arsenal of services. Government services, health, education, commerce and payments, agriculture, and of course, home use and entertainment. DCP, Digital Community Platform. Scalable, sustainable, flexible. Available now for rapid deployment.
And you can check out Spacecom's website for more information. All right, starting us off here in the studio today is IMPROVATE's founder and chair, Irina Nevzlin. Among her many achievements, Irina is also an entrepreneur and author who recently published the book, The Impact of Identity, The Power of Knowing Who You Are. Irina, thank you so much for joining us today. So what is IMPROVATE's vision in general?
First of all, thank you very much. And we were just discussing that it's our 5th conference in less than 3 months. And I'm very excited. And I think we have been in touch with more than 25 countries, if I'm not mistaken, over the last 3 months. So I'm very happy that even in the COVID time, we're actually managed to stay in touch and talk.
Absolutely.
The reason we created IMPROVATE is quite simple. I think, if you look around this table, I'm sure, and some people I know better, some less, but I know that there's a certain mindset which is the mindset of taking responsibility and of win-win. What I mean is that if you have two parties coming together and deciding to do some project, if you have a mentality that both parties should benefit, and if you understand that this is the way it's going to create a lasting change, then you have a much more opportunity to get to much bigger results. And so this mindset, win-win, we can see that now with COVID rollout, for example, where we see pharma companies obviously want to make money and make people healthier, governments which have to make sure that people get health services, and the citizens which benefit from all of that. This is a classic win-win-win. So we've created IMPROVATE to make sure that this approach works. It's a platform to make it happen.
Irina, communication is clearly the basis for everything. How do you see the Israeli satellite, the Amos 17, contributing to the development of advancing African nations?
Look, I think that we've just seen it in a video, but I'll tell you, the opportunities that Amos 17 represents compared to the regular grid, the old school grid, for countries with large space lands are enormous, and Spacecom obviously is leading this transformation. Now, this connectivity allows communication, and with communication comes an opportunity. Now, we at IMPROVATE, you asked what the vision is. The vision is to make sure that the opportunity turns into reality, because there are a lot of opportunities. Not all of them get ultimately to become reality. And the reality is that you can get any child, any person in the farthest rural area in Africa, in school, it's in small village, you can get them access to internet. And I think that world is a totally new opportunity that opens to those people which never had the chance, to experience all that. And we are very happy to be part of that revolution.
Wonderful. Irina Nevzlin, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
All right, now it's time to move to our special guest today, Right Honorable Tony Blair. It's great to have you again taking part in another IMPROVATE International Conference. You personally and the Tony Blair Institute are heavily invested in improving life and advancing Africa in all areas. It is an honor to have you with us today. So how do you see the role of technology and innovation in making globalization accessible to all?
Globalization's a fact, and even with COVID and some of the political reactions against globalization, the world's going to carry on integrating. And technology's got a huge part to play. It's got a part to play because it's partly driving this globalization. But it's also because if you want globalization to work for people, you've got to learn how to master the technology, harness it, and use it for the good of the people. And the technology revolution, it's the single biggest change that's going on in the world today. And it's going to transform and is transforming everything, the way we live, the way we work, the way we think, the way we communicate and interact with each other. So to make globalization work, you've got to make technology work for people.
Well, IMPROVATE is all about finding solutions and sparking collaborations between governments and tech companies in order to improve the quality of life for people around the world. How do you see IMPROVATE's contribution toward achieving this vision?
One of the biggest challenges for governments and countries, particularly in the Africa context, is you can see these technology developments happening around the world, and many of the people inventing the technologies and developing them are people who are passionately interested in operating in different parts of the world, and often particularly in Africa. But the challenge is how you link those with the ideas with the people on the ground who can help make them happen in continents like Africa. So in the African context, you have countries that could really use technology for financial payments, for health, for education, for issues to do with the security of the citizen, for the efficiency of government, the development, for example, of biometric identity, which I'm sure will happen across the continent of Africa eventually. But many of the people developing the best technologies are outside of Africa. So the question is, therefore, how do you link the two? And that's where IMPROVATE comes in, because it's because of its connectivity, it's able to put together the change makers with the policy makers and with the people on the ground who can help make it happen. And this will also, by the way, help in the development of Africa's own technology sector, because over the last 5 or 6 years, Africa itself has started to develop some really exciting technology companies. You will find today venture capital from the West investing in Africa in a way which a decade ago would just never have been on the cards. And again, all of it requires facilitation and connecting. And this is where IMPROVATE comes in and does it so well.
Mr. Blair, what are the major challenges in Africa today as you see them?
So the 21st century is going to see Africa take its proper place in the world. But right now, Africa is in a state of transition. So it has a population growing faster than any other part of the world. The population of Africa over the next decades will double, become a continent of over 2 billion people. Its middle class is set to double just in the next 5 years. And Africa faces challenges of development and poverty, access to electricity and therefore to technology, and of course, challenges of governance. Now, my institute works particularly on the governance side. In my view, the countries that are well governed today are the ones that succeed, because everything else is mobile, but your government's not. So if your government is operating effectively and well and honestly, you can succeed in today's world. If it's not, then it's much harder. So the challenges of Africa are multiple, but one of the things that's important for the world to realize is that you just take the issue of climate change, for example. A whole lot of international discussion, quite rightly, about how we accelerate our development of the measures to combat climate change. But without involving the continent of Africa, as it develops and as it needs access to electricity, to travel, to communication, without binding in Africa to this global picture, we're never going to succeed. So Africa is important in its own right, for its own people, but it's also important for the world. And the challenges of Africa are multiple, but I am optimistic about it. If you look at Africa today and compare it with Africa, let's say when I first came to office 25 years ago in the UK, Africa's come a long, long way. It's got better quality of leadership, better qualities of business. Its social links are much, much more developed. And, you know, as we were saying earlier, the technology sector, for example, in Africa today is really coming on. So Africa's at a very, very exciting moment of development, and smart countries are investing in Africa today.
Well, satellite communication enables communication without ground infrastructure. How do you see the advantages of satellite communication in Africa to meet these challenges that you have just mentioned?
So one of the biggest challenges that Africa has is to overcome its natural disadvantages. And its natural disadvantages are around, for example, the size of the continent, the fact that many rural communities are very isolated, you know, sometimes hundreds of miles from nearest centers of urban activity. And therefore, what that means is that to try and, for example, hook up the electricity grid to some of these remote areas is incredibly difficult. Now, fortunately, technology comes to our assistance here. So a lot of African villages are now using off-grid or mini-grid electricity facilities, and satellite technology gives us, again, a huge opportunity to bridge some of those land divides. So I think that properly deployed, satellite communication can be absolutely transformative for Africa. And it can allow it to leapfrog a whole generation of old technology and get to new technology. So this is incredibly exciting. And I think that there will be enormous interest in Africa in how this satellite technology can help with connectivity and communication. And there's an interesting parallel with the technology around solar, because going back 10 years, when people like myself were first talking about bringing solar power to remote African communities, frankly, people were pretty skeptical. They thought that it wasn't really going to be possible to do. At that time, the economics of solar power weren't so great either. But this is what happens with technology. 10 years on, the costs have come down, the technology's advanced, and now this is very possible for remote Africa villages. So I think satellite technology is one of the most exciting areas, and one of the areas where, if there is the right interaction between satellite companies and African countries and their governments, this can really advance things.
Mr. Blair, can you describe for us how you see the importance of this conference in exposing African nations to the opportunities in advanced satellite communication?
One of the problems when you're in government is you're busy with a whole lot of things during your working day, and you're dealing with crises and scandals and events that are unexpected or even expected, and you're dealing with the day-to-day politics and business of government. And so sometimes one of the problems is that you don't have the time to step back from the daily grind of things and look at what are the opportunities that, if you're aware of them, you can use to your advantage. And so the advantage of a conference like this is by bringing together people who are developing new ideas with policymakers, the policymakers can get some sight of the exciting opportunities that technology can bring. And one of the passions of my institute is to try and bring these change makers and policymakers together in a better dialogue. And the IMPROVATE conference is it's a great way of making those connections. Because, when you think about the opportunities to transform, for example, healthcare and education, just take those two areas alone. If you've got the right means of communication, there's no point in many of these developing countries, particularly in the continent of Africa, going through building all the legacy systems of countries in the West. Instead, they can use technology to bypass a lot of those legacy systems and develop the most up-to-date forms of communication, allowing you to do, for example, remote healthcare and education to a much higher standard and better degree than any basic and rudimentary school or health system can achieve in the old way. So the advantage of a conference like this is it helps those policymakers understand how the world's changing and how, with a bit of vision and imagination and focus, they can access those changes for the benefit of their country and their people.
All right, Mr. Tony Blair, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you very much indeed for having me at the IMPROVATE conference. It's a great pleasure to have been with you all, and good luck to everyone participating. I think this conference is a great idea, and I'm sure it'll be very successful. Thank you all.
All right, let's say hello again to Dan Zajac, the CEO of Spacecom. Hey, Dan, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Lauren.
So Spacecom is well known for being professionally practical and innovative. Can you please share with us a revolutionary service Spacecom is already rolling out in Africa?
For us in Spacecom, we understood, as also was mentioned by Mr. Tony Blair, that the challenge is the lack of infrastructure, terrestrial infrastructure in the continent. We see the satellite that we are providing as an enabler for services that are provided. And one of the most exciting things that we already done is putting a clinic in Mozambique that is connected via satellite connectivity, using a full suite of medical services that are very unique and now newly developed. And all of these services are connected via solar power, so it's really isolated and an off-grid and can be easily deployed in the unconnected territories.
Dan, I'd like you to address the challenges and opportunities Africa is now facing, as we just heard from Tony Blair, and how satellite communication can meet these challenges.
So I think that the three major challenges that we have is first is the terrestrial network, that there is a lack of terrestrial network. Africa is a very big continent, and we don't see a connectivity in remote places. We see a very good connectivity in the major cities and in the urban places, but in the semi-urban and the rural places, there is a lack of communication. It's not connected to the grid, as mentioned before, so we see that there is no electricity. And I think that one of the biggest challenges is also finance. And the opportunities that we see there is, first of all, the young population and the ability to adopt new technologies. We see that in Africa, a lot of new technologies are being adopted much faster than in the West, and we see that this puts a very good opportunity moving forward. I think that together, where we come from Israel, so all the technology that we have and all the high tech, now we have much better medical solution and e-learning solution that are being more optimized for the electricity side and also from the communication side. And this enables us to perform or to introduce those services in Africa based on the satellite that we have.
Can you give us your view and maybe some concrete examples?
So for me, as I mentioned, I mean, first of all, we have the clinic that we have in Mozambique. I think it's a great example of combining all these three elements, the communication together with the solar power and the high-tech technology, introducing the medical e-health and telemedicine in those places. In addition, we are also cooperating with the e-learning. I think that e-learning is very important, especially in remote locations. It enables you to interact with remote location and introducing in educational infrastructure to places that it was didn't enjoy this infrastructure before.
Great, thank you so much for that, Dan. Now I'd like to invite you to present to us the new digital community platform, the DCP, and generally what Spacecom is all about.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'm very excited to be here today. It's a great honor to bring so many respectable people together. My name is Dan Zajcek, and for me, this occasion is a dream come true. After 20 years in the communication sector and 10 years working with Africa, I took over the position of Spacecom CEO last year. And finally, have the opportunity to introduce a game-changing concept in Africa. A game-changing concept that I believe will create significant impact. We call it DCP, Digital Community Platform. As you all know, we live in a connected world, and communication is important than ever. It enables everything. It enables education, it enables proper healthcare services, government services, and also agriculture. Communication is so important that the UN declared as a basic human right, just like food and water. Especially now, in COVID-19 era, communication is the way to do business. Communication is the way to learn and to receive medical attention. It is the only way to deal with social isolation, to connect the rural to the urban, for the governments to commute to their nation. As the UN said, the pandemic is a wake-up call for all of us. I experienced Africa for more than a decade, and now I can safely say Africa is in the best position for the next giant leap. With a young population willing to adopt new technologies, together with a dedicated satellite beam that can cover the entire country, Africa is ready to connect all the rural areas, even those in limited infrastructure in remote regions. It's inspiring to see how Africa has evolved so much in recent years. And now, it is the right time for Africa to take the next step into digital transformation. Through satellite, it is possible to tackle many connectivity challenges with a fast and cost-effective deployment. And here is where Spacecom comes in. Spacecom has a fleet of 4 satellites in orbit and more than 30 years' experience providing communication services. Among our clients are governments and global enterprises around the world. We are partnered with the UN, and we offer turnkey solutions for mobile backhaul services and Wi-Fi access. Recently, we have launched our newest satellite, Amos 17, one of the most advanced satellites in the world, designed especially for Africa. Amos 17 has joined our fleet of satellites, providing global coverage and communication infrastructure to our partners. Using the unique capabilities of Amos 17, we offer you NationSat. NationSat is much more than just satellite capacity. It's a dedicated national communication infrastructure exclusive to your country with a national coverage. NationSat enables you to enjoy our new platform, DCP, the Digital Community Platform, which includes applications for governments, health, education, commerce, agriculture, and home entertainment. Now, let's zoom in and see the impact of the application available through the DCP. In the field of government services, the local government portal includes everything that the government needs in order to govern, from national population registry to homeland security, border control, and much more. And this is just about government services. While using DCP, you can introduce the world's best educational methods to your students and teachers. DCP allows you to provide a high-quality educational infrastructure in urban and remote locations, online and offline. And what is the most exciting thing about this? You can leverage the best educators and extend their reach, allowing for educational equality nationwide. So we talk about government services, education services, and now, as I said, the DCP has a wide variety of services, including agriculture. Whether it's vital information for the farmers, online training, or even big national program which can create impact and improve the national export and produce. Of course, the DCP also provides the ability to sell and buy online, carry out financial services, and enables online payments. Through Wi-Fi and backhaul connectivity, the DCP provides home use and entertainment services like OTT and television. Now, I would like to share with you something that really makes me proud: the ability to actually impact and improve people's life. Look at the picture. It's from our connected medical clinic that we have established in Mozambique, making crucial medical services accessible right now. We can already offer a full suite of medical services in any location with fast deployment, from a mobile emergency clinic to remote expert consultation, laboratory services, and diagnostics such as ultrasound, ECG, and X-ray. Summing it all up, DCP is scalable, sustainable, and flexible. How flexible? You can pick and choose any application in any location, according to your needs and requirements, with the ability to change services along the way. And you know what? The best part about it, it's not just a vision, it's a reality. I invite you all to join our DCP program today. Thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to be part of this important event.
Thank you so much, Dan, and please come have a seat with us. Okay, let's welcome Mali's Minister of Communication, Mr. Hamadoun Touré. Hello, so great to have you with us today.
Yes, great to join you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, strong and stable communication is a key factor in improving government services in health, education, homeland security, basically in everything. 5 years from now, how do you see Mali's development, and what role does communication take in building its future?
First of all, let me thank you for inviting me to join IMPROVATE, and let me congratulate IMPROVATE and also thank Tony Blair for making the opening remarks. I've met Tony, of course, in many occasions in my former capacity as Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union. And I would like to really thank him for his leadership. I'm also a satellite engineer by background. So I was very pleased to see the presentation by Dan. And as you know, I have spent most of my career in the satellite industry, working in Intelsat in Washington, D.C. first. And at the time, I was actually ended up being the group director for Africa and Middle East. So I was covering Israel as well. I would like to also let you know that I was a member of the board of IMPROVATE until my appointment as Minister of Communication and Information and Digital Technology in Mali. So I'm very pleased and very knowledgeable of the challenges that the ICT industry is facing. And I should say that Africa is today ready for business in this field. Having witnessed that as Secretary General of ITU, the missing piece was the legal and regulatory framework, which is totally harmonized today in Africa. Some of the greatest things we want to put in place are the infrastructure, the content development of applications and services, and also, of course, also capacity building and education. Those are the key pillars of our development program. And Africa is working on all those areas in many countries today. Last but not least, the financing and the solution, the locally grown solutions are some of the things that we are looking at. And I believe that having been in this industry for over 40 years now, I believe that if you have good projects, you have financing for it. And there are very many bright ideas in this field. You need no longer to convince the users for it. Having joined the government, I realized how much I didn't need to convince the Minister of Agriculture. He's the one who came to me and said, look here, I need to put e-applications in everything I want to do in agriculture and other fields in his area. The Minister of Education and Higher Education, we are working together. From day one, we started working together on making sure that exams are well prepared, well protected, and there is full transparency on it. And we are now putting together a program in which we are trying to embed new fields in the curriculum, because we know if you don't put things like artificial intelligence, coding, and virtual presence and virtual reality, you don't put those in your education program today, the children will be illiterate tomorrow. So we're working together on all those fields. And of course, some of the greatest challenges are how do you prioritize in a country where there is security concerns, there are hunger problems, there are education problems, there are health issues, of course, in the middle of a COVID pandemic. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that people use this tool and don't put it in the back burner. So, and I can tell you that having been in this government of transition in Mali, which is have a very specific goal of just organizing in the next 18 months a free and a fair elections, I've been tasked to actually develop a 10-year plan to 2030 ICT development plan that we're putting together. That is very ambitious, I can tell you.
Okay, Mr. Toure, thank you so much for your input today.
Thank you.
Okay, let's say hello to former Israeli Minister of Communication and member of Knesset, Yoaz Hendel. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm happy to be here.
So, as the former communication minister of Israel, how do you explain the fact that Israel, which is such a small country, has such advanced space and satellite communication services?
First of all, I think that Israelis are motivated by kind of a biblical prophecy to share the light in many aspects, and part of it is how to connect people. Now, I'm a politician, and now we are in the middle of a political campaign, and this is a business of separating people. Communications infrastructure is how to connect people. And this is, I think, part of the idea behind the tools, behind the satellites, behind the fibers. And when you check what Israel is facing and what we have done here in the last a few years, we can see how Israel use communications infrastructure to grow and to increase our economic situation. We can check the numbers. We're talking about GDP of 1.1, which means about 13 billion shekels. We are talking about a growth in increasing of labor circle, and on and on. And even though that Israel is such an advanced country, we still have places like in the desert, in the Negev, which we have our limitations in connecting people. It's more hard to connect people with fibers in the desert. And then you have other options. One of them, and I think the best one, is use satellite. And so if one wants to understand why everything is developing here, it's because we have so many challenges, and we have to find solutions, and solutions to the desert, solution to the north, and solution to other parts of the world. And Africa, our friends in Africa, I think, enjoying part of the ideas that grew here.
So with that said, what is your view when it comes to the importance of satellite communication for the fulfillment of government projects and the impact it has on government initiatives in general?
So in general, communications infrastructure, including satellites, are part of the ability to give people in the world, in everywhere, first of all, opportunity to learn, to work, to have health treatment from distance. Now, when you check high-speed internet, for example, which is only one aspect of this issue, can bring people to better places, can connect someone from the Galilee to the Silicon Valley, and connect someone from Mali or from Zanzibar to Washington or to Vienna. And I think it's not only changing the world, it's changing our perspective on globalization, on opportunities, and on limitations. And the government has a role to encourage this development.
All right, Yoaz Hendel, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Now I want to introduce Mr. Adok Gai, Director General of the National Communication Authority from the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much.
So
I would like to take this.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Space Comms and the organizers of this event for giving us the opportunity to attend. Thank you, Madam.
Of course. Now, only recently the country has been successful in overcoming many of its challenges, and it seems like you are on the fast track of development. Yet, so many challenges are still ahead. South Sudan is a landlocked country. How does it affect your overall communication strategy?
Generally, as a landlocked country with no infrastructure in place of any kind, and having emerged from a very long civil war, I think South Sudan is a classical case of what a satellite technology can be truly utilized to leapfrog connectivity. As a new member state in this sector, and having to have with no legacy technology from past communications, we do occupy the unique space as a country. And therefore, as part of our communication policies, we actually prioritize connectivity as an important factor for our people in order to leapfrog and catch the rest of the world where they are. Remember, we only got independent in 2011, and with no any form of communication and infrastructure. So as such, South Sudan see this opportunity presented by Spacecom as a new beginning, and could really fast track our initiative that we are already online with it. We would like, of course, to do this in partnership. As part of our effort, we actually filed and have received approval from ITU for a satellite orbiter for broadcasting and communication. Truly, with these challenges, we think that the initiative by IMPROVATE give us the route that we can take and fast track our plans for connecting our population in order to be part of the global community with all the benefit it presents from e-learning, connectivity, and the health in particular, as we have seen with the case of COVID. Until now, part of our country has not even heard about the news of the COVID yet. You can imagine the challenges we face. And if such a technology were to be truly rolled out in our region, we would actually give Spacecom a very positive ground where they can see the results and how it would impact the community. Thank you.
So with that said, how do you use communication to enable government services in remote communities in the country?
Certainly, we use communication by trying to do rural connectivity. And as a country recovering from war, basically we encourage very much also the use of communication for dissemination of peace information and for disarming the war veterans and for promoting peace and reconciliation. Remember, this is a country that has been at war sometime among communities who are actually disconnected. So we look at communication also as a facilitator for peace and promote commerce among people. Earlier, I recall Honorable Tony Blair made a reference to how sometimes some people have no connection among themselves. Really, the case is in South Sudan, and Honorable Tony Blair has been very instrumental in the independence of South Sudan. Is somebody we are indebted to him, and we think he has actually spoken very much of all the challenges that are exhibited here. Thank you.
Mr. Guy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, let's now move to speak with Ms. Mamadi Gobe Kamara, Deputy Minister of Information and Communication from Sierra Leone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, ma'am, with Sierra Leone being a coastal country, what nationwide communication challenges are you sharing in your inner with landlocked countries like the latest in South Sudan? What do you see as challenges that are unique to you in particular?
Sierra Leone has a vast coastline along the Atlantic Ocean. However, majority of
All right, I'm very sorry about that. Unfortunately, we're having some technical issues and we can't quite hear you, but we will come back to that. So just stand by, please, ma'am. Thank you so much. All right, let's move now to Tanzanian Ambassador to Israel, Job Masima. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Tanzania is obviously an amazing country, not only because it's wonderful people, overwhelming wildlife, and the Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa, but also because you've developed a unique approach regarding ICT regulation. Can you please share with us how these regulations, specifically in relation to cellular companies, convert reinvestment into connectivity and development of remote communities?
Thank you for having me in your majestic studio and very good program.
You're welcome
I've been
anytime.
Attending for a number of times.
Sure.
Coming to Tanzania, satellite communication is very important. But before going to your question, let me address 3 issues which I think the previous speakers haven't addressed them correctly. It's true that Africa, we are facing a problem of internet connectivity and more or less an unreliable net penetration. That is true. But there are 3 issues which I thought that they needed to be addressed. One is the cost of high cost of data and internet facilities is really a problem for Africa. With all those problems which you're talking about, now come to this issue. Can we afford those high costs of data and internet services? I think this company is high time to address that. That's one. But another problem which you're also facing is the online payments, issues of online payments such as trust. A number of people, including my people from my home country, have been complaining a lot because of this communication. Once you transact with those people who matters, you don't get the end results. or the end result is different from what you got at that one. So let's go with all the efforts we are doing. It's high time also to address this one. How are you going to tackle it? Because it's taking down the efforts which we are progressing. And the third issue, which I thought also they should look at it, is that of low technology adoption by the firms, that offices and the big firms in Africa. Not all, they are still traditional. So we are concentrating on individuals and letting these big firms not to adapt this satellite communication. So in addition to those which have been said before, I think we better also address to this. Now coming back to our question on satellite communication. In Tanzania, luckily, we do have 3 advantages, which you could say that is above the rest of some of the countries, and we use them accordingly. One is the geographical location we are having. Tanzania, we are having a coastal line of about 1,402 miles. So it's a gateway to 6 landlocked countries, including Sudan, which the minister was appointing here. So with the gateway, this to these 6 countries is not only on cargo. There's the fiber, whatever has come for that. So this one for us is a very big advantage. Another advantage which we are having for us as Tanzania is the size and the demography of it. As big as it is, Tanzania is more or less 43 times as big as Israel. Or you can say that Tanzania, the way it is, is bigger than is bigger than all of Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, and Rwanda combined. Wow. That to get to Tanzania. But our population is still very low. They have been pointing out that you could find that in rural areas, the population is scattered. So in Tanzania, if we could compare with Israel, our population density is 67 people per square kilometer, compared to Israel, which I think is around 400 per square kilometers. Now, with this one, it comes to the challenge of communication, because with this dense population, now how are you communicating then? This is really a challenge which we needed to address to that. It's an advantage, but it's also a challenge. So generally, what I can say about Tanzania is that once it comes to digital connection, slightly we are better off than the rest of our neighbors.
Wonderful. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for filling in the blanks for us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great.
All right, now we are joined by Mrs. Juanita Clark, CEO of Digital Council Africa. The Digital Council embraces the extraordinary possibilities that the digital era has for Africa. The Council believes that the digital economy will enhance the quality of life for African citizens and allow Africa to be extremely competitive in the global market. Mrs. Clark, first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today. You are working with the African government's policymakers, helping African countries define their digital strategies to safeguard their future status. You hold a very firm and practical approach regarding the combination of fiber and satellite networks. Do you find these 2 technologies to be competitive or complementary to one another?
Good morning, and thank you, Lauren. And well done on an excellent event. Thank you, IMPROVATE and Spacecom for the invitation. The whole conversation around the either or of technologies that we are always talking about, I think really stems from the consumer mindset, where we look at particular brands when it comes to consumer devices. But it's just simply the way that competition has panned out historically at consumer level, and how society has viewed technology. But when it comes to technological infrastructure, particularly pertaining to connectivity, that layer, there is no either or. We have to look at how they can complement each other. And for us to bridge this immense digital divide that Africa is facing, we need to consider all available technologies. And certainly, some of them will make more sense in certain geographical areas than others would. And, satellite in particular has an immense role to play in connecting rural communities to the digital economy.
Juanita, regarding African Tier 2 or Tier 3 cities, if it was up to you to decide, would you recommend getting them on a national satellite network as a first means to gain access?
Lauren, to answer that question, I think we have to, and I think, we've all got a bit of pandemic fatigue, but, you can't exclude the pandemic out of this conversation. So, we are viewing more and more people working from home. And one of the side effects of working from home is people's ability to relocate out of the major metros and, return to villages and smaller towns. And of course, this has got immense benefits for the cities. They curb urbanization. Cities are bursting at the seams globally. This is a problem, not just in Africa, but particularly in Africa as well. So, so if people can move out of the cities, and if we can take this immense burden off the large metros and in turn help the rejuvenation of smaller Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns, that would be a phenomenal success story. But, there's one critical thing that is required for people to move out of the cities and still remain a productive citizen, and that's access to connectivity. So for us, anything or any goods, connectivity solution would, make sense. And certainly, Africa's already fallen significantly behind in the connectivity race. And satellite, again, has got this immense role to play. I think Dan referenced it, when he spoke about rapid deployment. We can rapidly connect people in Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns. He's also referenced the fact that, we've got this very big youth, the youth population. 60% of the citizens in Africa are, below the age of 30. And people want to go to universities. And we're not keeping up pace with the building of universities. And, we're going to have a problem. 20 years from now, we are sitting with a massive educational problem. And e-learning is going to become increasingly important. And, we will not be able to send our children to physical environments anymore. So, satellite connectivity, certainly in the more rural areas in Tier 2, Tier 3 towns, is going to play an incredibly important role to provide services to the next generation and to people looking to work from home outside of urban areas.
Juanita, thank you so much for that. Before I say goodbye to you and let you go, I just want to turn to Dan over here for 1 second and see if he has any response to the comments you just made.
I totally agree with her. I think that the satellite is an enabler, and for us, the big challenge that we have and the DCP that we're introducing is putting the application over the infrastructure. Everybody talking about the connection and the infrastructure, but at the end of the day, we need to provide the solution that will enable all the technology and all the application and enable the education in remote location, the telemedicine in remote location. So I think that it's a complementary solution and it's a full suite of services together. And the focus should be on the application and implementation and not on the infrastructure itself.
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. And thank you so much, Juanita Clark, for joining us. Okay, we are going to wrap up this section of the panel. We're going to try to go one more time okay, we're not going back to that interview. There are some technical difficulties. So thank you all for being on this panel, demonstrating and highlighting a great vision and needs which depend on good communication throughout the country. Now we want to move on to our next panel and discuss in depth how satellite communication technologies affect and enable advanced government services and how it is essential for every nation, especially developing countries.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff.
Okay, welcome back. I want to welcome here in the studio Oren Tepper, Spacecom SVP Global Sales, Aviv Ronai, VP Marketing and Product at Novelsat, the Ambassador and Special Envoy of Ethiopia to Israel, Mr. Reda Nega Alemu, Mr. Eran Shapiro, Director of Technology and Business Ventures at Spacecom, Mr. Avraham Kofi Asante, CEO of Ghana Investment Funds for Electronic Communications, will join us. Dr. Solomon Balai, Minister Advisor to the Ministry of Innovation and Technology in Ethiopia. Mr. Abdissa Yilma, Head of Ethiopian Space, Science and Technology Institute. And Mr. Adrian Hall, Chief Operating Officer at Extentia. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this panel today. I'd like to give a special welcome to Professor Mamour Chole, Director General for Accreditation, Private and Foreign Higher Education Institutions in the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So this was the year in which the world witnessed, due to the global COVID pandemic, how important it is to have strong communication infrastructures to enable remote learning. Even in places where schools are connected to internet infrastructure, students find it difficult and in many locations impossible to connect and continue their education from home. How did South Sudan deal with its educational challenges during the recent pandemic?
Thank you very much. As you put it, in fact, the importance of communication technology in education has been recognized prior to the downing of COVID-19. Now, South Sudan, which is now described as a low-tech country, has a lot of difficulties when it comes to discharging education services during COVID-19. And in fact, the good news that we received at the beginning of the year is that the fiber optic cable connection has reached South Sudan. And therefore, our objective is to connect all these areas in South Sudan with fast internet connections that will enable us to discharge our education responsibilities. What we did as a low-tech country is that we decided to identify our needs. What are really our needs at this time? And one of the issues that we recognize is that we need to combine both offline as well as online. Because in some occasions, you still need some sort of face-to-face interaction, because using only internet and simulation programs and all these other communication or high-tech program may not be enough, to teach students in some specialization like medicine, engineering, and all these things. So with this, we decided to do both of them, combine offline as well as online. As you put it correctly, the country is not really well covered with internet connection as well as communication, etc. So we encourage all the universities to open centers all around these remote areas. And that will enable students to use these centers. And these centers were all connected with photocopy machines, computer laboratories, internet, television screen, radios, pre-recorded material, as well as facilities that the students can use. And because of this low internet, sometimes downloading and uploading material is not easy. So it is a chance for these students to avoid them congregating in one places or in main campuses. It is a chance for them to photocopy materials, to access internet, receive handout, connect to the main content, and then get interacted with their tutors and their lecturers, wherever they may be. In towns where there is higher institutions, then we did some kind of memorandum of understanding between all these universities that students from one university can use facilities of other universities, just to avoid students moving around during COVID-19. Again, also, we observed that some facilities like smartphones, WhatsApp, Messenger, Zoom, web binders are really very important, especially when we discharge our education services. And therefore, all the universities encourage students to do so, to have any of these facilities and get connected to either centers or to the university campus where they can receive information on a regular basis. Universities also were instructed to digitalize books and material in their libraries, because that will help students who are in remote areas to get access to this material through the established centers. And we are still moving on to encourage, establishment of more centers in all the remote areas. Though all this, there is a lot of challenges. As I mentioned earlier, network connectivity is one of the challenges because there is no network coverage for all over the country. Again, also, most of our staff are not really well trained in using offline and online facilities. And therefore, that one, training of teachers so that they cope up with the new responsibilities is one of the challenges we are facing at the moment. We also felt that there is a need for mobilizing resources and availing funds to sponsor all these activities, because all these activities cannot move on smoothly without having funds. Sending people down to do some small lectures, face-to-face lectures, as well as providing these materials, need a lot of investment. So these are the few steps that we have taken, and we are still moving on to improve all these experiences as the country now taking this issue of online and building of infrastructure, online infrastructure is as a priority. So we are still moving on, improving our system so that we keep on providing education services to our students wherever they are. Thank you very much.
All right, keep up with the good work. Professor Chol, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, let's move now to Mr. Abraham Kofi Asante, CEO of Ghana Investment Funds for Electronic Communications. Thank you for joining us.
In Ghana, I run the Universal Access Fund for connectivity to unserved and underserved communities. And for that matter, satellite communication is one of the very important facilities that we need for us to reach the underserved and also to give them fast and prompt connectivity. We have been involved in the deployment of the satellite technology, one, to provide data services and also to provide voice for rural communities. We have areas that have very difficult terrain, where when you use the traditional terrestrial technology of line of sight, you are unable to reach such communities. It therefore puts them in a position of disadvantage, where they cannot be part of the knowledge society, or they cannot receive medical services as those in the urban areas and where connectivity is very easy to be made. So for us, satellite connectivity has become one of our key provisions in providing connectivity solutions for both data and voice for many rural communities, and especially for those who are in very difficult terrains. And we have deployed a number of them. In some areas, we have cited connectivity for clinics, that is for medical services, and it is working very, very effectively, especially in the western northern part of Ghana, where we have very difficult terrains. These have been deployed. We also have areas which we call the overseas, far away from the center from the urban areas. We have also deployed for them in the area of provision of educational facilities. As of now, we can identify not less than 46 communities that are benefiting from our satellite hub, because Ghana owns a satellite hub which is managed by Disengov. And we believe strongly that if we go that trajectory and be able to solve the problem of getting finances, where we can have more space, pitches, then we can be able to provide good services for these people. So I think the challenge that we have is funding. If we have enough funding, then we can have more space segments, and we'll be able to give them broadband services in these areas. Because of this limitation, some of these rural communities have only voice services, they do not have data because we don't have enough to buy the bandwidth that they need. And we think that working from that perspective, we are looking forward for collaborations with other organizations that will help us expand our connectivity for these underserved and unserved areas through satellite connectivity.
Sir, we have mentioned education as a significant topic to be addressed by governments. What is the role and ability of organizations such as yours to enable solutions facing this great challenge?
I think the solution for these challenges is for us to receive some government funding. You know, the Universal Service Fund takes 1% of net revenue from the telcos or the mobile network operators and other ISPs. However, we think that if we can have some kind of collaboration from development partners and government would also assign some funding for this purpose, it would help us to be able to resolve some of these issues. Because, you know, like we always mention, the young people in these areas cannot wait. And as much as they do not have connectivity, especially in this time of COVID, it cuts them totally off. And it also is a disincentive for investors who want to be in the rural areas and have some work done. We have a lot of small, medium enterprises that really shy out from establishing their factories or facilities in such areas. And it puts some kind of deprivation on people in the area in terms of even getting employment. But I think that the solution, like I mentioned, is for more collaborative effort between government and then development partners to observe that we have a lot of the population out there who are deprived because of connectivity.
All right, Mr. Asante, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Ghana. We really appreciate it.
I also appreciate. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right, it's time to turn to Oren Tepper. Hi, Oren. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So, Oren, as Spacecom's SVP of Global Sales, it seems you are in a perfect position. On the one side, you're meeting the growing demands coming from the African markets. On the other side, you are always at the front edge of technology. We just heard about, the Republic of South Sudan, educational challenges, as well as a handful of other countries. On a nationwide level, how does the Amos 17, Spacecom's newest satellite, alongside Spacecom's new services, the DCP, as mentioned earlier by your CEO, Dan, who was with us, how do they help countries such as South Sudan and other African nations achieve the educational needs that we were just discussing?
Thank you, Lauren, for having us here. So actually, the DCP platform, or Digital Community Platform, is an infrastructure to enable e-learning and educational services, both online and offline, by the way, as Professor Chol mentioned before that, for the children. But let's not forget that the same platform can be used also for train the teachers, which is not less important. And this is also a challenge, as Professor Chol mentioned just before. So, moreover, actually, the nature of satellite communication, the benefit of that is that the scalability is achieved naturally within the solution. This is very important in order to deliver, unified services across a nation, and while maintaining nearly the same cost. So, actually, the cost to deliver this solution to dozens of communities is it's nearly the same as the cost of delivery to thousands of communities or nationwide. So, the solution that we are talking about is not cost prohibitive, which is very important, also considering the challenges of getting the funding, as was mentioned just before.
So overall, how can modern satellite communication help with connectivity throughout a country? What are the benefits of your nation's services over Africa?
So I think one of the inherent benefits of satellites is the unified coverage across the entire territory of a nation. Or in other words, it's ubiquity. Okay? So when you think about that, this is the optimal infrastructure to deliver all the sort of governmental services, being it e-health or e-learning, financial services, and even broadcasting to the communities.
I cannot think about a better solution or a better method to guarantee that every citizen within a nation will be awarded or guaranteed with the same level of governmental services, irrespective to his proximity to the urban areas. This is one of the main challenges that large-scale countries in Africa are experiencing today. So this is actually the beauty of all what we are talking about here, of all this conference. Okay, we are taking this vision into the practical stage, okay, rather than keep it just in the vision level. So, and that, in that sense, it's very important. This is, I think, what actually Spacecom is trying to do with this digital community platform.
Wonderful. Oren, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on now. NovelSat is an international innovator and a leading provider of next-generation content connectivity solutions over satellite-powered. Powered by innovative technology, NovelSat solutions are pushing the envelope and boosting network performance in order to drive new experiences and expand business potential. Aviv Ronai is NovelSat's Vice President of Marketing and Product, and he joins us now. Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
So, Aviv, go ahead and tell us a bit more about NovelSat.
Okay. NovelSat provides a leading content connectivity solution serving both the video broadcast and the broadband connectivity markets. If we can move to the next slide, we can see some of the applications that we serve. We focus on high volume and high value application. And as for example, on the broadcast side, we provide video distribution and contribution solutions, content delivery network connectivity, and outdoor broadcasting. On the broadband connectivity side, we support applications such as telecom and enterprise solutions, as well as video over cellular networks and other applications like supporting Earth observation satellite. We have thousands of installations serving hundreds of customers, supporting multiple customers around the globe, and we are actually, all of us are consuming services delivered by NovelSat solution, as for example, world's major sports events are being delivered relying on NovelSat solutions. Our leadership foundation are actually based on three components. One is our proprietary waveform and premier system architecture, which deliver the world's highest performance transmission. This is coupled and combined with cutting-edge integrated video capabilities and highest content connectivity and protection. Moving on to the next slide.
All right, let's move on to the next question.
Slide.
What broadband solutions are you providing, and what's unique about your solutions?
Great question. We actually support broadband connectivity solution for multiple applications. We support actually telecom application and delivering connectivity to rural and remote locations which are lacking terrestrial network connectivity. We enable that with both point-to-point and point-to-multipoint application, and we provide highest bandwidth efficiency in order to improve network economics. We also support enterprise connectivity for utilities, infrastructure, and for government services, where we bring broadband connectivity to remote and rural area, as well as enabling high-speed access to cloud infrastructure and services. Speaking of cloud infrastructure and services, we provide pioneering open and flexible cloud connectivity solution in order to streamline data connectivity to satellite solutions.
So, Aviv, your technology connects to satellites like the IMO 17 to bring cellular and broadband services to unserved or undeserved areas, correct?
Correct. More than that, we also provide satellite connectivity solution in order to provide communication during some disasters or emergency situation, like natural events and disaster, which causes terrestrial network outage. In such cases, we utilize satellite connectivity in order to back up the terrestrial network and restore communication services as quickly as possible.
You've also recently announced a unique solution for delivering TV services over cellular networks. What is so special about this service for the people of Africa?
This is a very special solution where we actually took our broadband and broadcast expertise and blended them together in order to deliver video and TV services over a mobile network. We actually all want to have our own video experience, like we watch TV at home. We want to have it everywhere. And today, more than ever, Our first screen, if not the only screen, for which we use to connect and consume video and TV services is our mobile devices. And we would like to deliver these services over our mobile devices. We're doing that by taking the content delivery network to the edge, to the base station location, bringing the video closer to subscribers and enabling this kind of unlimited video services to the users. With that, we enable live services as well as on-demand video services at very high volumes, and we improve the quality of experience of the end users.
Sounds extremely innovative. Is this new solution already available?
This solution is actually already available and will be available actually within a month's time. And we actually already demonstrated that together with our colleagues at Spacecom. We had a real live demonstration of the end-to-end service in action.
Wonderful. Aviv Ranai, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, moving on now to the Ambassador and Special Envoy of Ethiopia to Israel, Mr. Reda Nega Alemu. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you again for coming to another IMPROVATE conference. I had to add that in there. So Ethiopia is clearly a very special country and quite centralized when it comes to communication based on what we've seen and heard today and your knowledge of Ethiopian regulation. I invite you to present a challenge that your country is facing and might be solved or improved by these panel guests.
Well, Ethiopia has adopted a space and telecommunication policy, and we have identified the challenges that we have in that regard. And it's outlined that the major challenges that we have, one is regard to the capabilities in terms of lack of skilled human resources in this context, and also space technology capability as a whole, which is also one of the challenges that we have, and weak space infrastructure and absence of regulatory framework in this regard. And in addressing this challenge, the policy has outlined, the opportunities and what are the way out in terms of addressing this challenge. One, it is clearly stated in the policy that we need an organized 3 layers solution. And this one, it refers to basic framework in which we build an infrastructure development for communication and satellite services. And also, in terms of manpower, we need manpower training and capacity building in that regard. And we have to create enabling conditions at domestic level to make sure that there is an efficient and effective utilization of the space technology at home for telecommunication services, for agriculture, for education, and for also other services that we can use in terms of the space technology services.
So based on what you have heard today, how accessible and affordable is satellite communication? And do you think Ethiopia should plan to invest in satellite communication in the future?
Yes. Ethiopia has adopted, as I said, an ambitious and competent space program. We've launched 2 satellites in the past year, and we continue to work in more concerted way to be able to develop our capacities. One thing which we need collaboration in this regard is, financing and investment in this sector, which the government has introduced, the public-private partnership, where we have investment opportunities in all sectors. We collaborate with our partners to develop our capability in this regard.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, quickly, I wonder if, Oren, you'd like to respond to any of the comments you just heard.
So this is actually what I was mentioning before. Definitely, the Ethiopian market is one of the most important market that we are experiencing, and we do see that there is, as His Excellency mentioned, there is a great initiatives and policy going over there. And indeed, this is something that I share actually the same views exactly as His Excellency in this regard.
All right, Aviv, would you like to take an opportunity to respond as well?
No, I think the issue is pretty much understood, and we all hope for more and more satellite services to enable more and more video and broadband connectivity to
Wonderful.
Africa.
So it looks like everyone agrees.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Moving on now to Mr. Abdissa Yilmaz, head of the Ethiopian Space Science Institute, ESSI. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting us to participate on such important event.
So what are the main goals of the Ethiopian Space Science Institute?
Ethiopian Space Science and Technology Institute was established in 2016. So it's just 4 years since its establishment. So my institute is a leading institute in terms of space science, technology, and application. So the major goal of the institute is to support the National Development Program in the area of agriculture, natural resource management, urban and rural land management, and also in the area of communication also. And well, at the end of the day, we are also expected to serve as a source of income and also to create employment opportunity through encouraging private sector participation. So for this purpose, we are engaged in research and technology development activities in the area of astronomy, space science and application, remote sensing, geodesy, also on in the area of aerospace engineering, satellite operation, and so on. We are also trying to develop infrastructure in this area. Also, we are responsible for human resource development. In this respect, we have a postgraduate program in the area of astronomy, space science application, remote sensing and geodesy, both for masters and the PhD. And this program is affiliated with the Addis Ababa University. And we are also engaged on the development of space and space-related products and services.
Sir, we heard in a previous interview about the benefits of utilizing a satellite on a national level. Can you share with us the role of science and innovation and any programs that you have going on in the country?
Yeah. So far, we launched 2 remote sensing satellites in collaboration with the Chinese government. These satellites are remote Earth observation satellites. So the data obtained from those satellites, we are utilizing it for agriculture, water resource management, and in the area of mining and so on. Currently, we are also building, apart from the 2 satellites, currently we are also building a multi-satellite ground receiving station for Earth observation satellites. So, and this project is expected to start operation by March this year. And we have also a plan to build satellite manufacturing, assembly and testing center in the country. And we have also a plan to build our own communication satellites. We are expecting to realize this project within the next 3 to 4 years time. We are also engaged in the development of the next, Earth observation satellite. These are the areas that we are engaged on.
All right, Mr. Yilmaz, thank you so much and best of luck with all your initiatives.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving now to the UK. Let's welcome Extentia Limited's Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Adrian Hall. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lauren. Nice to join you, and thanks to Amos and to IMPROVATE for inviting me to join this.
Very happy to have you.
Program.
Now, Extensia has been working with the governments of Africa for many years. You are well connected and actively involved in new initiatives. Can you share with us Extensia's technologic vision, and why do you find satellite communication as a state resource to be an accelerator for national development?
Sure, thanks, Lauren. Extensia, as you say, we've worked in many countries across Africa. Our focus is on sustainable development at a national level across the continent. We believe that the best way to achieve this is through a robust e-government strategy and program. E-government is the foundation for digital transformation. It supports business enablement, citizen engagement, and transparency across government agencies at a local level, at a national level, and regionally as well. There's some exciting technology platforms that support e-government, and these are enabled and supported by cloud infrastructure, which makes the applications more affordable, more efficient, more innovative in terms of collaboration, etc. But we also notice that the solution itself is only part of the problem. The technology platforms only serve to solve a part of the problem with e-government, because you've also got to look at literacy, you've got to look at availability of devices, you've got to look at things like affordability. Critical, though, to the success of any e-government program is connectivity. There's a very interesting map that if you look at the true size of Africa, you can see a map which illustrates exactly how big Africa is as a continent. And within Africa, you could fit China, the US, India, Japan, Eastern Europe, and most of Western Europe. And that gives you an idea of actually how big Africa is. And whilst the urban areas are where a lot of people do live, there's also a large portion of Africa and people that live in rural, more remote areas. And those areas need to be connected for the whole of e-government to be efficient. And for that to happen, there's only really satellite that can provide that. It's unaffordable to be putting towers, fiber, and other infrastructure into those rural areas with sparse population. So satellite really is the way to make that happen, and very efficient at doing that. With the new satellites in the market now, the speeds, the bandwidths, the affordability, and the reliability are much improved to the old satellite versions that we saw in previous years.
Mr. Hall, Africa is known for its Big Five. Can you point out the Big Five in digital communication areas that will shine thanks to the new satellite solutions like Spacecom, NationSat, and DCP, the digital community platform?
Sure, Lauren. For me and for Extensia, the Big Five areas where improvements can be made across the continent and will have the greatest impact include healthcare, for instance, where, again, with healthcare, many clinics are out in very remote areas. So they'll benefit hugely from satellite. And as we see with the COVID pandemic, it's essential that everywhere data is collected from across all areas of a country, for the digital healthcare platforms to be efficient and gather the right levels of data and information. That connectivity is essential to the most remote areas. Education is another key area, and again, looking at here and now, lots of children are not going to school at the moment. They can't go to school physically, and unless they can access that online, education suffers, and that will have a long-term effect. So having satellite, having the platforms for education enabled and delivered over satellite connectivity means that education can get into the most remote areas and have the biggest impact across each country. Agriculture is another area. you've got smallholders and farmers in remote areas that need to know where they can go in order to sell their goods or to buy goods or to transact. And they need connectivity as well as the applications that will enable them to get that information. So again, satellite is essential for that. And it's also essential for helping them to see and predict weather patterns and crop rotations and things like that are essential areas where satellite can support. Emergency services are required not always where there's a mobile phone connectivity or where there's a fiber connectivity. Emergency services can happen anywhere, and there needs to be connectivity that supports that. And finally, I think disaster relief has to be taken into consideration, because disaster relief, refugee zones, etc., are again in remote areas. And the thing with disaster relief is it happens when it happens. You don't necessarily have the network already there waiting for it, whereas satellite is there ready and can be turned on instantly. So for me, top 5: healthcare, education, agriculture, emergency services, and disaster relief.
All right, some very important points. Adrian Hall, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's turn to Eran Shapiro. Hello, Eran. Thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you, Lauren. Nice to be here.
Sometimes the key elements for success rely on the actual details that build the right solutions. Which tech ingredient in Spacecom's new DCP digital community platform makes it so accessible for Africa?
Sure. I think what we heard today, there are a number of issues when you're trying to meet the challenges that are mentioned about education, health, and so on. The two main aspects that put, let's say, a high challenge level is the availability of electricity, which in rural Africa is below 20%, and the connectivity, which is also very low. So if you look at what needs to be deployed per community or per village or per small city, first, the deployment cost could be extremely high if you're looking at technologies that were available until now, especially when you're trying to do duplicate that for a large number of communities. There's also the perception that the ongoing cost of connectivity via satellite could be high. There's the deployment complexity in terms of technology skills and the management of such deployments. And there's the time to market that governments are saying, okay, if I'm going now into a project, how long will it take for it to be accessible and usable by the population? So what we've done is, together with multiple partners, some of them are speaking today here, we've built a unified platform that can actually serve multiple applications at the same time. At the core of the platform, which is residing in each community, there are 4 components. First is the connectivity via satellite. The second is the local cloud, which reside in the community. The third is the Wi-Fi hotspot connectivity within the community. And the fourth, which is very important, especially when you go over grid, is a solar panel, a solar powered solution that allows all these services to be delivered without having the need for local electricity. Now, what makes it accessible is the development of new technologies that we have coupled that together with a very powerful, very advanced satellite in the form of Amos 17. So the combination of both the ground technologies and the satellite connectivity allows us to provide this unified solution at a very cost-effective, sustainable manner in the short and the long run. And some of these ingredients are including like advanced solar systems. In the past, when you're looking at solar systems, they used to be very expensive on one hand. They were not providing too much capacity on the other hand, and they had a very short lifespan. New technology allows us to have cheaper solution that lasts much longer and can power such an encompassing solution per community. There is also a sector-specific solution that we are building with our partners. For example, if you look at a digital clinic, so one thing is you want everything to be connected and always on, but the second part is if you want to have advanced systems like ultrasound on X-ray locally at those remote locations, they have to be very power efficient in order to be able to work off the solar system. So all of that, you have to take that into account when you build such an encompassing solution. And when you want to deliver content that can reside locally on the local cloud, you have to do it in a very efficient manner. And we have developed, with some of our partners, a very efficient way of delivering content to any number of locations in a very cost-effective manner. Now, the last thing which we should bear in mind that if you want to make it accessible to the people living in the suburban and the rural location, it has to be very simple because many of the population in these areas are lacking in digital skills. So we have to make the solution also very simple to use for those type of populations as well.
So, Eran, how scalable is the DCP for governments in terms of the planning of the solution and the ability to quickly deploy and see quick results?
Actually, it's very scalable. And I think one of the key points that we have discussed with our partners, it was apparent that when governments are considering going into such projects that digitally transform those locations, they regard scalability, flexibility, and quick deployment as the key factors on what solution to select and how this can be deployed. So what we've made sure is that we built the platform to make it simple first in the deployment phase, because deployment could be very complex, especially here like Northwest Ghana. It's hard to get to those places. Right. So the deployment itself should be as simple as possible. It should be simple to operate on an ongoing basis. And the platform itself, besides the simplicity to deploy it, is also scalable in two manners. First, in the community, once you have the building blocks or the infrastructure, it's very simple to add additional application, additional services that can be delivered within the community. The second part is how scalable is the system when you're going nationwide and you want to handle thousands of locations. How the backend of all the system that has to be used for that can grow, how scalable they are. So what we made sure is first that we can handle thousands of locations on one hand, and this includes, beside the distribution of content to any number of sites like 30, 300, or 3,000, like Oren mentioned earlier, this is agnostic to us. The solution is designed that it will be almost unlimited in size on that manner. And the second part is that the backend, that now you want the backend to be able to support education or health. So if you go to health, you need now, if you go digital, you need a medical record per patient. You need a way to keep the history. This needs to reside both in the local cloud, but also in the main cloud of the government. So the system at the backend should be able to support it. Same thing if you want now to monitor the progress of students using some e-education systems at the village, or even doing some homeschooling with our solution. It's also something that has to be very scalable. So we made that as well. And last but not least, you also need to have a lot of internet capabilities or internet capacity to be able to support all of that. With the Amos 17 unique design of a very strong coverage per country, you can have a lot of capacity. This will allow governments to deploy such solutions without having to care about the size and the number of locations. It will be able to support all of that.
Interesting. Eran Shapiro, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being with us today for this panel. Now, for the last hour, we have heard our distinguished guests sharing their vision and skills. But how does it look in real life when Spacecom's innovation and technology meet the reality of Africa? From vision to reality, a report by Beyond Communication News. Let's watch.
From the United Nations headquarters in New York, I am Tal Heinrich, here to tell you how the international community at this iconic UN building right behind me is closely watching a remarkable project taking place in Africa nowadays. It digitally connects clinics and schools across the continent through an advanced satellite. This incredible, intriguing initiative is led by Spacecom, a leading satellite communication service provider. Grant Neunberg, Reuters reporter, brings us an exclusive special report on the successful, life-changing and life-saving operation and what it looks like on the ground in Africa. Watch.
Africa is changing amazingly fast. With a staggering 3/4 of its population under the age of 35, the need for internet access and use of data in Africa is growing. While internet connectivity in urban areas has significantly improved, the suburbs and countryside were left far behind. With no internet access and connectivity, much needed basic government services in non-urban areas have been less effective or barely exist.
People who live in remote places like this say they don't use the internet. Two of the biggest barriers, according to research: affordability and accessibility.
But that is starting to change.
In just a week, communications satellite will launch from Florida and bring internet and television communications to the entire African continent.
Spacecom is a leading satellite communication service provider. It offers information and communication (ICT) solutions covering most of the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, where Spacecom's intriguing project titled the Digital Community Platform, or DCP, first implemented in Mozambique, dramatically shortens technological distances.
Behind you, what you can see is the satellite plate, which basically provides connectivity, 5G, stable connection that we've been working with in the past few weeks and has been providing us with whatever we needed and beyond.
Here, for the first time, we reveal the extension of the internet and connectivity revolution in Africa, the digital future of the world's fastest growing region.
Satellite will always play a critical role in connecting people across Africa and can reach in places where other physical infrastructure may not be able to do so, especially post-COVID, as people migrate from physical encounters to into a more digital world.
Thanks to modern satellite technology, distant villages and towns are now able to access what has already become a basic human right in the urban areas.
I think it's a huge role that satellite communication has more than ever because of the COVID pandemic.
In order to be able to connect remote location, backhaul over satellite is the common way to connect those remote locations for the SOA network.
It's going to help us to be able to access more information faster. It's going to help us to be able to connect with other people in the fields of education and healthcare that are across the globe.
Capitalizing on the opportunity, Mozambique is cooperating with the satellite communication company, improving the country's medical services in non-urban areas.
Drag each word to its synonym or antonym.
At this clinic, children can play online educational games while waiting for a doctor's appointment.
We're trying to provide a clinic with internet connectivity and solar energy to be able to provide sufficient medical diagnostics.
Fiquei mais ainda surpreendida pelos novos equipamentos que aqui temos. Muita novidade, muita tecnologia boa, mais fácil de obtermos os diagnósticos. E isso é uma maravilha.
Doctors and nurses are also satisfied with the high technology, improving their services and performance.
Nesta pandemia, temos uma solução para tal. Existe uma nova plataforma que é a Spacecom, que veio para ajudar o nosso país e os outros países que não têm finanças para tal, para alguma organização certa para a saúde.
Using the system, rural clinics can communicate with health professionals thousands of miles away. In real time, it is possible to share ultrasound data, a hearing, or a vision test with a specialist doctor overseas.
A implementação do satélite irá nos ajudar muito. Quando nós mandamos os resultados para Portugal, por exemplo, levam um mês para os resultados virem até cá. Para não levar esse todo mês, o médico pode também nos ajudar via online.
The medical team in the countryside then receives an accurate diagnosis and instructions for further treatment.
Efectivamente, este aparelho é muito prático, muito importante, sobretudo em diagnóstico ambulatório e aqueles lugares onde é quase inacessível esta tecnología.
Satellite communication is also revolutionizing education in Africa. Spacecom has created a local cloud in the village, dedicated to educational and any other content required for other government services in the community.
I believe that will be a huge support, a huge backbone for the educational system.
And connectivity has been definitely a real priority in education globally.
Your lecturer can actually deliver a kind of a classroom experience to you right there online with the backup from the satellite, enhancing the quality of education and all of that.
This new task we have, which is providing new solutions and reimagine education in a creative way, I think we can get it.
Thanks to its success, the project that you saw here is expected to expand across Africa in the near future. With one additional small effort and Spacecom's technology and innovation, life in non-urban Africa is on the fast track for a significant improvement.
And welcome back. Now, as we spoke about the vision, needs, and technology in the earlier panels, it is a pleasure to open this third panel and talk about practical ways to implement and enable communication to achieve country growth and resilience. As most of us already know, today more than ever, satellite communication is available, accessible, and affordable. It is truly the enabler of any economic and social growth throughout Africa. In this panel, we would like to focus on success stories about ways of funding a wide range of projects all across Africa and how, on the most practical level, we can use advanced communication solutions such as Spacecom's digital community platform to launch Africa to the next level. I'd like to welcome here in the studio Israel's former Minister of Science, Mr. Yizhar Shai, Spacecom's SVP Business Development, Marketing and Strategy, Mr. Ofer Asif, and Aryeh Shnai, Head of International Finance from Bank Leumi. Joining us from abroad, Ismaila Togola, CEO of SMTD in Mali, Yariv Cohen, CEO of Ignite Power, Ambassador Wol Meyer Aryek, Head of Mission and Ambassador of the Republic of South Sudan, and Ambassador Ababi Demis, Director General of MOFA Investment and Technology Transfer in Ethiopia. Yizhar Shai, hello again. I'd like to start with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, Lorraine. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you have been a proud member of Israel's innovation and tech ecosystem for decades. Until recently, you served as the Minister of Science, and among the many responsibilities, you were also in charge of Israel's civil space program. What is the importance of reliable connectivity nationwide and communication as enablers for the development and success of science and technology based on your experience in Israel?
Communications has always been perceived as a significant part of any growing economy and definitely a modern economy. I believe that this last year was the ultimate proof as to the need and reliance on technologies and communications in order to enable coping with the various ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic. As we have all seen around the world, communications was one of the most significant parts of enabling back-to-life communications, education, economy, anything that deals with the day-to-day activities of all of us around the world. Here in Israel, we also saw a proof and significant indications of the importance of communications, definitely as it relates to communicating with kids around the country, with people who could not attend physically to work, with people in the periphery of the country. All of these needs and many more were a proof that we rely more than ever now on modern communications, on infrastructure that enables modern communications, and definitely satellites being a significant part of that infrastructure.
So how do you see the connection between the establishment of human capital in science to the overall satellite domain in general?
Well, as we develop the technology and science into the next levels of enabling space communications, satellites included, definitely the reliance on human capital is becoming more and more significant. Here in Israel, we prepared a plan for the next 10 years where we put the various foundations of this infrastructure and education and preparing the next level of human capital of scientists, researchers, engineers, business people, all of whom will be connected together in this up and growing industry here in Israel, will be a significant part of the next level of preparedness for us as a nation and for the academy in Israel, the science and the technology, the infrastructure, the whole economy as it relates to space starts with educating, preparing the next generation to coping with the various challenges of modern communications.
Well, the world certainly learned a lot in the last year. I have to agree with you on that, Yizar Shai. Thank you so much. All right, let's move now to Ambassador Wal-Maier Aryek, head of the mission of the Republic of South Sudan. He joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us today. Sir, Sir, thank you for being with us today. Let me just continue on to my question. How do you see the ability of Israel and South Sudan to successfully cooperate?
Well, the technology, the communication in particular, South Sudan is a landlocked country. So basically, the next set of opportunity would definitely be communication. And we are aware that the state of Israel is the high-tech company, the high-tech country, and definitely South Sudan would be able to benefit. We have cooperated with the state of Israel in so many ways, in agriculture, and in water management technology, and also in all other possible technology communication system, in particular satellite. So we see opportunity between South Sudan and Israel improving and getting better. We are looking for Israeli companies and the government in order to build the capacities of people of South Sudan, in particular the youth and the girls in particular, because our population is actually based in rural areas. As you have already heard from our National Communication Authority Director General and then the Ministry of Higher Education, that there are huge challenges that are faced by a country like South Sudan, which is landlocked, and also issues of peace and security. So we look into technology and cooperation with Israel in order to improve the lives of people of South Sudan.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Ambassador. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, one thing coming very strongly from this event is that Spacecom is leading a revolution that makes satellite solutions both high performance, multidisciplinary, and cost efficient. Spacecom highlights the NationSat and the DCP digital community platform, which are both designed for rapid deployment. It seems like sometimes the decision-making process is taking longer than the deployment. Excuse me. Ofer, welcome again to the studio. Let me hear about this from your perspective.
Thank you. That's an interesting point, Lauren. Actually, when you come to think about it, the setting is there. The satellite is in the sky, it's in orbit, it's operational, and the implementation is fairly quick, as you might say, and the scale is there and easy. We talked earlier about the DCP, which is scalable and can be implemented quickly. Yet the decision-making could take some time. And I think that for me, the way that I feel and think about it is that it's a question of investment and financing versus the outputs and the results that you gain out of it and the time spent to achieve these results. When you look at it, what we are trying to do is to lower the boundaries, lower the entry point with good and advanced technology, with efficient operations, that will enable very cost-effective solution. And we top it with work with financial institutions and banks that will come to these projects that we are providing and leading, and combining together. I think that this will enable maybe to shorten the cycles and provide these leaders that decide about these projects to not just decide about them I would say in a more timely manner, but also to see the results more quickly and see the fruition of their programs.
What do you see as the top advantages of NationSat on the Amos 17 satellite for governments in Africa?
Okay, so well, NationSat is probably a perfect solution for governments. It runs on the Amos 17 that we mentioned earlier, which is absolutely the most advanced satellite over Africa today. It's a powerful satellite, very modern, and it is located basically in the optimal position above the sub-Sahara, right at the heart of Africa. I think that when you look at, especially at Africa, you have large countries, sometimes a lot of non-urban population, you have large percentages of non-urban population. There is limited coverage, and I think that NationSat enables countries to take control, to place infrastructure of their own. They're able to control the whole infrastructure as a whole for civil and non-civil, homeland security or other government services, post office services, etc. And in the end of the day, they can run the programs that they wish to run in a very professional manner on a professional communication infrastructure. So as a whole, we are actually facilitating indirectly the growth and prosperity of these countries.
Wow. All right. Ofer Asif, thank you so much for that explanation. Really appreciate it. All right, Ignite Power is the fastest growing Pan-African developer, distributor, and financer of life-enabling technologies, providing customers across the SSA region with state-of-the-art solutions to their everyday needs. The company has already directly impacted more than 1.5 million people and created 3,500 local jobs with agents at 10,000 villages across the region. Ignite executes national-scale projects working together with governments to empower last-mile communities in the fields of electricity, clean water, education, healthcare, and more. Through its new medical project, Ignite is providing remote clinics and health centers with a holistic solution, tailor-made to the needs of remote medical staff. By combining off-grid solar systems, satellite-based connectivity, and advanced technologies powered by the solar system, Ignite enables governments to provide millions of people with improved medical services for the first time, leading Africa into a healthier, more sustainable, and inclusive future.
O projeto Ignite vai ajudar na eletrificação das zonas rurais periurbanas de Moçambique, com o objetivo de beneficiar 2 milhões de pessoas. A fase piloto é esta que estamos a lançar agora na província de Zambésia, distrito de Gilé. Ajuda a comunidade em ter acesso a um recurso que é importante para todos nós, que é acesso à eletricidade, à iluminação.
Eu ficava no escuro, mas tinha painéis solares. Mas os painéis não conseguiam suportar até amanhecer. Eu quis colocar a energia solar Ignite, porque consegue mesmo suportar e sem baixar a energia até amanhecer. Consigo ter energia à noite, no quarto, na sala, assim como na sala de estudo dos meus filhos.
Para comprar uma vela são 10 meticais e a vela ilumina por 4 horas. Ao passo que a energia da Ignite tem o custo de 17 meticais ao dia, então é reduzido. Se fizermos a conta, uma família que antes gastava em torno de 1.000, 1.200 só para iluminar, hoje usa 500.
Melhorei a vida, uso a energia à noite, consigo carregar o telefone, consigo meus filhos fazerem pelo menos a revisão da aula que estudaram na escola. Vale a pena ter a Ignite. Vale a pena.
Okay, let's move now to Yariv Cohen, CEO of Ignite Power. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Greetings from Dubai.
So, Yariv, can you share your thoughts about conducting such a solution for health, for example?
Yeah. So, as you saw in the movie, Ignite is the fast-growing provider of peri-urban and rural solar solutions. We develop, deploy, and finance the advanced solutions that you saw that use the satellite communication. For us, solar power and internet connectivity are not the end goal, but the enablers, the infrastructure upon which we can develop and deploy all the advanced technologies that are that you can see. We started with home solar, and within 18 months, we connected 1.5 million people, then moved to solar agriculture, changed the landscape of solar pumping in Rwanda. And in 2019, we started working on design for solar medical systems. When COVID happened, we were ready. We install the system you saw in the video, so the ultrasound, the X-ray, the blood test. That's a picture from our clinic over there. And given that our solar systems are very energy efficient, we were able to add Spacecom connectivity to our clinic in Mozambique and manage the project. It actually took us less than 24 hours to add the connectivity to it, and we can do it anywhere. And our experience, to what you said, is that once you lose the cables, everything scales. So when we cut the power cables and connected 1.5 million people, it happened in no time. Now that we're cutting the internet cable, literally, we can scale, and this is the future of all health and all education, connectivity and solar power.
So today, solar power combined with premium satellite connectivity seems like the main solution for the major obstacle holding back proper education and health solutions from reaching remote areas. What is your prediction of the future in that regard?
So the main challenge on everything around is just that they don't have access to infrastructure, the power, the connectivity, the clean water. And what we are seeing now is that that's no longer a problem. That can happen, and that's just moving as fast as possibly can be. And that fast deployment, so it doesn't matter where the clinic is, you don't have to train the doctor anymore. It comes online from the satellite. You don't have to connect the power. You don't have to wait for the 4G to be. So what we will see is that most of the education will be moved to online, the same of what we saw in our part of the world, and now we're moving to Africa, and the same for medical. So what we expect in medical is that there will be a leapfrog from where we are today, which is basically 100,000 clinics that actually don't have any equipment, to fully advanced point-of-care solutions within reach to the whole population of Africa.
Okay, Yariv Cohen, thank you so much for joining us from Dubai. Okay, let's move now to Aryeh Shnai, Head of International Finance from Bank Leumi. Thank you for joining us, Aryeh. I hope I pronounced your last name right.
Correct.
Thank God. Okay. And then we've heard today from Spacecom executives about the opportunities to make a national project with an annual cost below $10 million. This is a breakthrough in terms of bringing new business opportunities into those countries. What is Bank Leumi's portfolio on financing projects in Africa for Israeli companies and for non-Israeli ones as well?
Okay. So Bank Leumi is active in structured export finance for the past 30 years, I believe. And so Bank Leumi is one of Israel's leading banks in this area. We've seen over the past decade a major shift of projects that we finance towards Africa. I would say from all applications that we receive today, probably 60%, two-thirds of these applications are for projects in Africa. And we shouldn't be surprised by that because, you know, today one of every four children that's born is actually born in Africa, and there's a huge population there, and population growth is going at high speed, and of course, all these people, they need to be fed, they need education, they need medical services, they need employment. And so there's a large demand for projects in Africa. And so over the past years, we have financed projects in Angola, in Zambia, in Kenya, in Senegal, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Rwanda, and many more to come. And we do it in diverse areas: agriculture, fish farms, poultry, water infrastructure, telecom infrastructure. All these areas we have actually financed projects in. And so this specific area of satellite telecom, satellite internet services is of special interest for us because, first of all, we believe that it gives a lot of help to development of human capital, and we see it will bring real economic growth to the countries where it's implemented. And that's, of course, for us as a financial institution, it's an important factor. We look also at our source of repayment, and when we see economic growth, it gives us comfort.
So what kind of financing solutions can Bank Leumi provide specifically for satellite service providers with African governments? Like, what are the advantages you can contribute to these projects?
Okay, what we envisage if we talk about a satellite telecom project, we envisage that payments will be made in two parts. First of all, there's the capital investment that you have to make to get the infrastructure and the equipment and the installations on the ground. And then there's the periodic service component that has to be paid as well for the internet services and for maintenance, things like that. So where we come in and where we can help is to finance the capital investment needs and to spread out the payments over a period. We finance projects up to periods of 10 years. And that's, of course, a way where you can make a combination of expenditure on CapEx and on OpEx and create the combined package that will suit the needs of the buyer, of the consumer in the specific country. And so we could do this as for financing solutions, we can do it basically in two ways. One way is what we call a buyer's credit, where we as a bank give the financing directly to the buyer, which would usually be the Ministry of Finance of a certain country. And the other solution, alternatively, would be to do it through indirect financing or supplier's credit, where basically we support the supplier to provide financing and spreading out of the payments over a period of time. And in both of these solutions, we would eventually rely on support from the Israeli Export Credit Agency named ASHRA that we always use as a backing to our financing. And whether it would be through buyer's credit, supplier's credit, each of them has got its advantages, disadvantages. But, it depends on the deal. You have to go into the deals for that.
All right, Aryeh Shnai, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, let's move now to Ismaila Togola, the CEO of SMTD. It is such a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, as a Mali-based government entity who is dealing with actual deployment in a large country and faces the needs from the market, what do you find to be the key elements for national-level infrastructure to enable good services to the community?
Yes, so as you said, SMTD has the goal set by the government to deploy infrastructures everywhere in our big country. Mali has about 1,240,000 kilometers squares. And our main goal is to make sure that infrastructure, whether it's for broadcasting or telecommunication, is reached everywhere. So right now we are deploying our newest network for digital TV, and also we are deploying lots of kilometers of fiber optics. Now, the key elements to deploy such infrastructures in such a big country, in my point of view, are four key elements. So you have the security part, you have the electric part, you have the accessibility parts, and also the manpower. When it comes to security, the country is so big that we have to make sure to take into account the security parts with all the infrastructure that we acquire and deploy. We have to make sure that once the infrastructure is deployed, that it's safe, whether they're human security or not, that the infrastructure cannot be vandalized. That's the first part. The second part is accessibility. Being such a big country, we don't have roads everywhere, but you have people everywhere. So we have to find ways to be able to reach those key parts where it's very hard to access. The third key element is electricity. Now, when you go to certain rural parts, electricity is very scarce. Even if it's available, it's not available all the time. So we tend to prioritize solar power, source of energy everywhere we can. So it's still a challenge. So we go with solar power generators, and wherever the national electric power is available, we try to combine all three sources of power. Now, the fourth element is the manpower. When I say manpower, is the the qualified technician and engineers who can be everywhere. We have a growing number of people who are getting into our industry, and we're working hard to train more so that they can be everywhere our infrastructures are available. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Togola, thank you so much for joining us from Mali.
Thank you.
Okay, our final question, or rather our next question in this panel, is to you, Ofer. Let's bring you back into the conversation. So we've heard so much today directly from the African policy makers, from Tony Blair, and from international leaders. How is Spacecom's vision aligned with all that's being said and raised in our discussions today?
Okay, today we had great discussions, and we heard all the leaders that were talking about important things, their needs, their inspiration, the communication abilities that they wish to have to enable health and to enable education, to enable basic government services to all of their countries. I think that rightfully so, Mr. Izar Shai here have mentioned the COVID. I think the COVID have brought us all into an era that the idea behind digitalization is much more eminent and known to all. And the idea and the needs is much more natural, I think, for people. Africa has made, I think, a great advancement in recent years in terms of infrastructure, communication infrastructure as a whole. They made huge progress. And we see ourselves as partners for these governments and as basically enablers to continue and drive this vector or this route to enable a faster and quicker implementation of infrastructure of communication in these countries. Mr. Togola have just mentioned about knowledge. So part of what we do is turnkey projects and BOT project where we transfer knowledge over time. Since we're working over 3 decades in this field, we have a lot of know-how and knowledge. The DCP that we have been mentioning and the NationSat is doing exactly that for these governments and nations. And I think, that's the whole directions that we're taking.
All right, very interesting, Ofer. Thank you for that. Now, before we move on, here's a bit more about IMPROVATE. Take a look.
Like breathing, connectivity is a basic human need. That's exactly why the UN has declared internet connection a basic human right. Especially in times like these, connection is what makes us grow. It gives us meaning and lets us be a part of something bigger than ourselves, part of a nation. Spacecom is proud to be a part of the effort to empower African nations to connect, and very proud to present Digital Community Platform, or DCP, a practical and sustainable solution to your country's digital transformation plans, including remote and less accessible regions. Combining connectivity, Wi-Fi, local cloud, content, and OTT in a simple and innovative way. Using Spacecom's brand new and advanced satellite, Amos 17, specifically designed for Africa's needs, DCP provides a turnkey solution which enables a complete arsenal of services. Government services, health, education, commerce and payments, agriculture, and of course, home use and entertainment. DCP, Digital Community Platform. Scalable, sustainable, flexible. Available now for rapid deployment.
Don't forget, IMPROVATE is about making practical changes, exposing Israeli tech innovators to governments and companies around the world to promote businesses whose goal is innovation and helping countries further their development. The exposure right here at this conference is a first step, followed up with delegations and real business connections. Now, before we end this conference, I'd like to welcome again Dan Zajac, CEO of Spacecom. Dan, thank you for returning to speak to us once again.
Thank you, Lauren.
So Communication Africa 2021 was a very exciting event. Africa is ready to continue its advancements in the field of communication, and we all concluded today that it is the right timing and moment to introduce new innovative solutions. Spacecom is enabling countries to take over the African opportunity with its advanced satellite and digital community platform, the DCP. As the CEO of the company, no doubt you are excited regarding the future. How would you like to conclude this day?
I think that we had an excellent day. I think that, as we saw, we covered 360 degrees with different stakeholders. We saw the government perspective, the regulators, the suppliers, and also the users themselves. We understand that the challenge across Africa is real and provides a huge opportunity for companies in the tech, in the communication, but the most important is to bring something that will be scalable for first deployment to have the impact, and now it's accelerating due to the pandemic. So time to market is really an important issue, and for us, the solution that we introduced, the DCP, is covering this entire needs, and it's very flexible, it's very dedicated and very focused for the needs of the governments and for the nations and the people themselves. I think that it was a great day, and we are very excited to do this implementation and to have a real impact over the African community.
Great. Thank you, Dan, and thank you to all the guests on our panel today in studio and, of course, joining us from abroad on Zoom. That's it from IMPROVATE's and Spacecom's Communication Africa 2021 conference. We've heard today from the Honorable Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, distinguished ministers and ambassadors from Mali, South Sudan, Gabon, Libreville, Ghana, the Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and Sierra Leone, and from our partners in this conference, Spacecom. We also want to thank NationSat, Ignite, and Bank Leumi. IMPROVATE is all about access and connections, exposing Israeli tech leaders to governments and companies around the world to promote businesses whose goal is innovation. The exposure right here at this conference is a first step. The next step, delegations and real business connections. We want to thank you all for taking part and hope this is just the start of doing business together, making technology accessible to all and improving the lives of people across the world. Keep an eye out for IMPROVATE's next conference, CyberSec, presenting cutting-edge Israeli cyber technologies to the Gulf on February 11th. I'm Lauren Izzo. Thank you so much for joining us today. And that is all we have.